are here, let's take a look at the Daily Nation, and this is the top story, front page story: holy betrayal, prayers then murder in the bush. Pastor Mackenzie promised his followers heaven, ordering them to fast till death. I see they've indicated that the death toll is 201. Yesterday, President William Ruto did tell us that the death toll is 210. That was last night during his the joint media interview. Death toll in the Shakahola massacre. Authorities are continuing to exhume more bodies in mass graves in several parts of Pastor Mackenzie's vast farm in Kilifi County. We have been running a promo for a special report that has been filed by one Brian Obuya that will be running between today and Thursday. 2019 is the year Pastor Mackenzie moved to Shakahola, the wilderness. He told his members of Shakahola, the wilderness, he told members of his Good News International Church they would go to meet Jesus. And President William Ruto did deliver an apology yesterday for the failures in as far as the security agencies are concerned. And here we go. Also on the front page of this, I see the caption here: cult of death. When Pastor Paul Mackenzie walked into Shakahola in 2019, his dream was to establish his own, quote, Bethlehem away from, quote, Babel, as he would often refer to the outside world. 3 years later, in August of 2022, things started going terribly wrong. The Nation took a deep dive and can now reveal how the embattled pastor manipulated and brainwashed members of his Good News International Church, leading to the horror of Shakahola, and how the police missed an opportunity to nip murderous cult in the bud. It's a special report that runs through pages 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. As it states on the front page, it is indeed a deep dive. Let's see what else is on the front page. I see at the very top: puzzle of state agency operating for years without a board. Attorney General on the spot over Victim Protection Board. 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote headache for Ruto and Gachagua as Mount Kenya leaders close ranks. And costly fuel, why pump prices will remain high despite the completion of the Kipevu Oil Terminal 2. Kenyans will continue to pay high fuel prices due to shortages caused by lack of adequate petroleum storage facilities. And release calls cash. Principals now ask state. Principals of secondary schools have asked the government to send capitation funds to schools, saying the continued delay threatens to ground the running of the institutions. The chair of the Kenya Secondary Schools Head Association told Nation that schools have not received the free day secondary education capitation funds for second term. Okay, let's take a look at what else is there, and we take a look at the Business Daily now. And this is what the front page looks like. Grand 2.1 trillion shilling plan to expand SGR to Kisumu, Malaba, Isiolo. And this report is by Dominic Omondi. Paper sets January 1st as start date up to June 2027. A named external financier to inject 1.8 trillion shillings in the project. If you're wondering which project, let's take a look at the first few paragraphs. And Kenya has set sights on a 2.1 trillion shilling plan to extend the standard gauge railway to Kisumu, Malaba and Isiolo by the end of June 2027, a government document seen by the Business Daily shows. According to the plan, the State Department of Transport will build another 2,746 kilometers of the SGR at 2.1 trillion shillings, a move that will push the total spend on the modern railway to more than 2.75 trillion. The plan, lifted from the Jubilee government's grand scheme on SGR, is part of the 3.42 trillion shilling Lamu Port South Sudan Ethiopia Transport LAPSET project. All right, let's see what else is on the front page of the Business Daily. Safaricom eyes return of interest-free loans for shopping. Safaricom is working on the return of a zero-interest credit service for purchase of goods that was last year blocked by Central Bank of Kenya hours to the launch. Peter Ndegwa, the Safaricom chief executive, told Business Daily the telco is making changes to the product dubbed Faraja, as was required by the CBK, and that the product will, quote, surely show up. The Faraja product is owned by Edomax Limited, a Kenyan-based financial technology firm, which has listed Safaricom and Equity Bank as its partners. Let's take a look at the ticker now. And on the ticker, this is what we have. Airbnbs increase pressure on hotels. The pressure of Airbnbs on major establishments in the country hit a new high last year after hotel bed occupancy in the coastal hinterlands and Masai Land more than doubled as Kenyans sought cheaper facilities to enjoy the beach and national parks. Stanchart pays 2.5 billion shilling loan. Standard Chartered Bank of Kenya has disclosed that it last year paid 20 million US dollars, which translates to 2.48 billion shillings, being part of loans it had tapped from its parent firm, Standard Chartered PLC. And I see Bear Run lifts dividend yields at the NSE. 13 listed companies on the Nairobi Securities Exchange now have a dividend yield of more than 10%, rivaling and in some cases exceeding returns on the one-year Treasury bill. The higher cash returns come amid deepening sell-off at bourse. All right, let's now take a look at Taifa Leo. And this is what the Taifa Leo has for us today. Maelfu hatarini kufutwa kazi. Tayari baadhi ya kampuni za maua bonde la ufa zimetimua takriban wafanyikazi 300, chuo kikuu cha Rongo kikifuta 64 na kile cha Egerton kikitarajiwa kufukuza mamia wakiwemo wahadhiri ili kupunguza gharama baada kufutilia mbali kozi 8. So more on this on page 2 of the Taifa Leo. I see an image also on the front page of the Taifa Leo of President William Ruto, at least two CS's Member of Parliament for Dagoretti South, and that is KJ at the Mashemeji Derby. Sports is a question. Issues to do with sports were raised yesterday during the joint media interview. Let's now take a look. Or let's see at the very top what it reads. Tume ya ardhi lawamani kuhusu ubaguzi yalaumiwa kuendeleza mapendeleo wakati wa kulipa fidia kwa waadhiriwa. All right, I will leave the Taifa Leo there, but I also see they've talked about a delay in capitation. Wanafunzi tabani, fedha zikichelewa, shule za upili zatishia kukatiza shughuli kadhaa baada ya serikali kuchelewa kutuma pesa za ufadhili. All right, standard now. And this is the headline story. Big 2. Let me zoom in so that we can get a better view. Big 2 meetings set unity deal talk. In 24 hours, the political rivals Raila Odinga and William Ruto have made 3 public appearances together, hinting at a possible mending of fences amid discontent over the high cost of living and taxation hurting citizens. I see also on the front page of the Standard, Pastor Ezekiel Foreigner's troop to Ezekiel Church for prayers. And some of the details are this: the sick from as far as Uganda, Tanzania, Ghana, Dubai, and Australia flocked to embattled Pastor Ezekiel Odero's church in Kilifi County seeking healing. I see the serialization of Eden Dweller's book, For the Record, continues, and they tell us to look at pages 4 and 5, Dweller's Truth Moments on Political Class. And I will be taking a look at the Star. I just need to pull it up on my screen here, make a payment or two before then. But let me invite my panelists to studio this morning. I'll start with Professor X.N. Iraki. He is an economist, columnist, associate professor, University of Nairobi. Karibu sana, Prof.
Asante sana. I think we should have the debate in Swahili.
You saw how I struggled. Did you see? Did you hear, rather? It's a Monday morning, Prof. Do excuse me. We also have a new face here in studio. Her name is Dharmi Jatani. She is a research officer, Institute of Economic Affairs. Good to have you in studio.
Thank you.
I hope the testosterone is not is not too much. Don't worry, I have you back. We also have in studio Dr. Abraham Rugo Muriu, and he is the International Budget Partnership Kenya. He is the country manager, and sitting next to him is the CEO, LM Capital. He is also an economist. Good to have you in studio, William Odhiambo Ramogi.
Thank you.
You know, when I think of the Institute for Budget Partnership, I think of BP. Yeah, IVP. Anyway, good to have you join us this morning on AM Live. I'm curious, Prof, we had spoken before the joint media interview yesterday at State House, Nairobi. President William Ruto sat down with various hosts, usually on Kenyan television, Lofty Matambo from NTV, Eric Latif, as well as Ayub Abdikadir, Citizen TV, and others. Forgive me, I don't know their names offhand. But I'm curious what you made of the sit-down interview, particularly on issues to do with the economy, because that's what they started with. The VAT on fuel and the president defending our GDP to debt ratio. Your thoughts?
I did not listen to the whole interview, but I listened to a part of it. And what impressed me most was the combative nature of the conversation.
Combative?
Yes, I was very happy to see journalists asking, Mr. President, what is your view? Do you mean this? So I think for the sake of democracy and for the sake of the public, I think that was a good interview. And in my opinion, it shows clearly that the issues people are raising are substantive. That's why the president is addressing them on behalf of the government. But mostly he defended those policies, which was not surprising because when he says that if this gets into the row, then you have to do this, like the levies, the housing fund, and so on. To me, there was nothing that was very... I was waiting for a surprise, but I don't think I got any.
Really? You are?
I was
what sort of surprise?
So I was expecting, for example, to say, based on the public outcry, I think we are going to remove this from finance bill.
I get you.
But he did a lot of defending, which I think was expected. And I think he seemed to have been very well briefed about what is happening in the country. So that's my view of the whole debate. But I would have expected maybe some surprises which I didn't get. I'm sure Ramogi will say something very different from what I'm saying.
You know, usually I have to have the two of you on, and then you sit on opposite ends for good reason. No, I'm kidding. Let's take a look. I just want to take a look at the Star, and then I'll come to you, ladies and gentlemen, on what your views are on the interview. The Star has this on its front page: why Raila Ruto big clash looms over tax. Apt. Kenya Kwanza MPs promise to pass law as drafted by Treasury. Raila's troops say they will resist. An image here of the two gentlemen, a beautiful picture. William Ruto, Raila Odinga shaking hands, and this should be the Mashemeji Derby. They were both, were they both? Yes, they were both at the Kipkeino Classic as well prior to this. So speaking of tax, Star has, as it so happens coincidentally, transitioned us back into the conversation on President William Ruto's interview yesterday. But before I invite the rest of my panelists to weigh in, let's listen in to a little bit of what he had to say. Okay, I'm told it's coming up in a moment. But Darmi, did you get the opportunity to listen in?
I think I'll agree with the Prof. Indeed, there is a lot of emphasis when it comes to, you know, how do we get the revenues in order to finance our public spending. But there is also that failure in terms of, you know, making citizens feel the worth for their money, so that all these new taxes and all these revisions can actually make sense. So you would expect that, given the uproar of all the new taxes, that the president's conversation would bring to light. For example, one of the issues that has been, you know, a major challenge even in the IMF request for reforms is the state-owned enterprises and all these departments and agencies that citizens continue to finance. So given this, you would expect to see this, given Kenya Kwanza also had a lot of fiscal consolidation strategy. I would have expected to also see some assurance on the same. But given the heat of the moment, and with the budget estimates still undergoing review and citizens giving their comments on the same, I think there's still room for more of the same conversations to be had. Yeah.
You know, somebody told us it will be passed without even changing a comma. But let me invite Dr. here to weigh in, because this is him on WADR, with all due respect. Just last week, you sat down with James Smart, Kwame Wino, to interrogate the Finance Bill 2023. And you were looking at government expenditure versus revenue, right? Yeah. The revenue generation plan. And you were quoted as saying in this micro clip that if you work out the math on housing, 5,000 times 12 is 60,000. Assuming I am 30 years old, contributing that amount in 7 years will be around 420,000. Which house can you build with that amount? Was your question answered yesterday by the president?
Not quite. I still don't get the place. First of all, we have very little information about how this housing fund is supposed to operate. In public, the conversation has been about how we can use retirement benefit schemes and the amounts we put in there to as a collateral for mortgages. That's a discussion. There's even a law, there's actually an amendment in Parliament. And the reason for that is because I don't want a house of 420,000. 80% of Kenyans own the homes they live in, the houses they live in. So you're basically talking about 20%. And those are majority in cities.
80%?
Yeah, that's by statistics. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So yes, that's according to our national census. So we are talking about, so the people we are talking about are people who more or less are either completely out of income because they are in cities, or two, it's us who want to live in our own houses but we are unable to take mortgages because of the high cost of mortgages. So we still don't have enough information about how this subsidization scheme, of government is going to operate. And when you read the fine print, even in the finance bill, it suggests that after 7 years, you get your money back less interest, or you roll it over. Almost like an intergenerational kind of, it's like you